Welcome, it is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel as we near 200 subscribers. Still building this bad boy up. We're going to split it up into two videos. So this one, and then I'll have one, I guess it depends on when you watch this, but I'll have one published on Thursday morning. I'm going to record them back to back, though. Have been at Packers training camp, recording this on Wednesday. It's an off day for the Packers, but went to training camp on Monday and Tuesday, and kind of just giving some observations. And we're going to split it up into two, an offensive video and a defensive video. We probably should do one on special teams. You've got Keyshawn Nixon taking reps at kick returner. I would ideally like to see him back there. Remember back in January, he said after the playoff loss to Philadelphia when he fumbled the opening kickoff that he wasn't going to return kicks anymore, and that has sort of calmed down, and Brandon McManus, I think, is 23 of 23 during training camp kicking field goals. So, in theory, we could do one about the special teams. And there is, I don't want to say pressure, although it might be. There might be some pressure on Rich Bisaccia to deliver this year with special teams. I think things are finally starting to come together with that unit. But this one is going to be on the offense and training camp observations for that side of the ball so far for Green Bay. And we're just going to bounce around. Going to be some quick hitters, talking about individual players, position groups, things of that nature. I'm going to start with Marshawn Lloyd. I feel for the dude. Officially diagnosed as a groin injury, suffered on, I think it was that Monday. Took a low hit to Nate Hobbs. We'll never have the answer to this, but Nate Hobbs in, was it Sunday's practice when the team was not in pads? They weren't in pads yet, and Hobbs delivered a couple of shots to Dontavian Wicks, and on the second one, Wicks, stayed on the turf a little bit longer, peeled himself up, and gingerly made his way off the field. And after practice, Wicks took no offense to it. He kind of just brushed it off and said, hey, some guys, have a higher motor in situations like this, even at training camp, and kind of just said like it is what it is. And Matt LaFleur had come out and said, they loved Hobbs' aggressiveness. It's part of the reason they brought him over in free agency from Las Vegas. But the phrase, or the question, I guess, was, does he need to tone it down a little bit? And LaFleur had said yes. And then the very next day, he goes low on Marshawn Lloyd. And Goody comes out. And the reason I said earlier, we'll never have an answer to this, Goody had come out afterwards and said that Lloyd's injury was suffered, when he planted his foot in the turf before the hit from Hobbs. And, I didn't know if that was a little window dressing done by Green Bay to try to not, because there were a lot of people pissed off and upset in Packers, social circles, content creator circles, on social media about Hobbs because, on Sunday he kind of decked Wicks twice, team's not even in pads. The very next day goes low on a hit that, when I saw it was like, probably not one you want to deliver in training camp to your own teammate. Hobbs addressed it too, and kind of brushed it off, I guess. I don't know, but we won't know if the injury was because of the hit, before the hit. Green Bay's kind of just trying to, put out some of the flames, I guess, on that front. With Lloyd, though, specifically, he can't catch a break. I was talking to one of my buddies, shout out Shekin, and we were going through just the injuries last year for Lloyd. And then right when it seems like he's about to come back, he has appendicitis, and then he's put on the shelf for the rest of the year. And now he has this groin injury. Josh Jacobs said that Lloyd is going to be all right. I love Josh Jacobs sort of being a team reporter and putting that hat on. He said Lloyd's going to be all right, won't miss much time. That was the words used from Josh Jacobs. So you can take that for what it's worth. I do believe, and it's easy to just forget about it because he missed his entire rookie season in essence with all those injuries. But Marshawn Lloyd, to me, for this 2025 team, he is a much more important weapon on this offense than you would first think. Josh Jacobs served, and I've said this in multiple videos, as a bell cow running back last year. And typically throughout Matt LaFleur's time as the head coach in Green Bay, you have someone like Aaron Jones who is the top back on the depth chart, but there is a backup that serves a very valuable role. And for a couple of years, it was Jamal Williams. And then for a couple of years, it was A.J. Dillon. But there would be like full possessions, full quarters sometimes, where you would see A.J. Dillon or Jamal Williams sort of spell Aaron Jones. And last year, I don't know if the plan was to use Marshawn Lloyd as the number 2 running back, but there was a vision of some sort in place where Marshawn Lloyd was going to have a role on that team as a rookie last year, and injuries derailed that. And so now in training camp, you see him go out with a groin injury, and he didn't return to practice, and haven't seen him back since. And, of course, today, being Wednesday, is an off day. You hope it's nothing serious, because I do believe there's a plethora of different options on this offense, weapons-wise, at the disposal of quarterback Jordan Love. And when you talk about, like, the shiny new toys, the rookies, Matthew Golden and Savion Williams, you get excited. You talk about Tucker Kraft and how I think he's ascending towards superstardom, legitimately towards being a superstar tight end of the league. And you still have the other receivers that have been around, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, whenever he comes back. And then you have this bell cow and Josh Jacobs. I do believe the plan is, or was, depending on the severity of this injury, to have Marshawn Lloyd grab this number 2 running back spot in training camp if it's up for grabs. Because Emmanuel Wilson's a good running back too, and Chris Brooks is in the mix as well. But I think Green Bay ideally would like to see Marshawn Lloyd grab the number 2 running back spot and maybe get back to that sort of stylistic approach that we've seen with LaFleur, where I don't know if Lloyd would get as many looks or as frequent snaps as we saw those years with A.J. Dillon when he was healthy, working as a sidekick to Aaron Jones, and when Jamal Williams held that role as well. But I do think for Green Bay, the plan probably was, hey, let's hope Marshawn Lloyd does what we think he's capable of, impresses us, gets this number 2 running back role, and has a real shot to carve out a week in, week out spot during games in some capacity. And now it's just another setback with the groin injury, and it sucks for him. And you hope you like the depth at running back, I think, right? Like Emmanuel Wilson being a number 3 running back for you, he'd be a number 2 for a lot of teams in the NFL. I was pretty giddy about the Marshawn Lloyd draft pick because he's so shifty and he can be deceptive, and he's one of those players that he can take a play where it's really looking like it's going nowhere, and all of a sudden it's an 8-9 yard gain. And I love having those kind of players on an offense that can make something out of nothing. Lloyd, to me, is one of those guys, and you haven't seen it yet, and now we all hope this groin injury isn't too serious for him. Matthew Golden, the aforementioned Matthew Golden, rookie, first-round pick out of Texas. First time Green Bay takes a wide receiver in the first round since Javon Walker. I have to keep reminding myself that it's training camp, because when I'm watching Matthew Golden on Monday and Tuesday, and I'm seeing clips from Sunday and reading reports and things of that nature, I mean, it's giving me number 1 bona fide star wide receiver thoughts. But again, I'm tempering the expectations. I'm tempering the excitement, reminding myself that it's just training camp. But this is a dude who so far has gone out and, the team's in pads, the team's not in pads. It hasn't mattered for Matthew Golden. Tuesday's practice, when Green Bay was working on 1v1s, Jordan Love throws a jump ball, and it was underthrown, and Carrington Valentine was in coverage. Golden just sort of, it looked like Valentine was trying to escort him more towards the sideline, and Golden at first was willing to go sort of tango in that direction as well. And then Love throws it, it's underthrown, it's a little inside. And Matthew Golden just glides over, comes over the ball, leaps, and just plucks it out of the air. And he makes it look so effortless and so easy, and it doesn't look difficult for him, and he doesn't look overwhelmed. And, maybe inside mentally he's feeling like things are still going pretty fast. But when you're watching him out there, and I know it's 1v1s, but I'm pretty high on Carrington Valentine. And in that drill, it was like, wow, Carrington Valentine is no slouch at cornerback. He should have a significant role in Jeff Hafley's defense this year on the outside, on the boundary. And to see Matthew Golden just make it look so easy on a ball, again, that was thrown inside, it was underthrown, and that might have been intentional by Jordan Love. Some of these throws, I feel like with quarterbacks, and you know what, I'll just save it, but I do feel like with quarterbacks in training camp, at times they take more risk kind of just slinging it around at training camp. They're not as, risk adverse as they are in the regular season because it's training camp. You want to give guys opportunities, give them shots, see how far you can sort of stretch things out and how risky you can be, I guess, in certain spots. And this was a ball where, you know, in 1v1s, it's 50-50, obviously, or it seems like it should be in a 1v1 drill. But Golden, again, he makes it look so easy. And I was taking, mental notes of what was going on. And that this is Tuesday now, 1v1 drills, where Matthew Golden, just glides over, plucks it out of the air, Carrington Valentine in coverage. Later on in that same practice, when it's not, 1v1s, the offense is going out there against the defense. Matthew Golden on a double move got behind Nate Hobbs and safety Evan Williams for, I think it was like a 55, 54, somewhere around there, 55, 54-yard touchdown, and he just waltzed into the end zone. He looks the part on Monday, now that I'm thinking about it. So he kind of hit the trifecta, and I hope this doesn't worry anyone about Green Bay's cornerback situation. Again, this is training camp, it's practice. One of them was a 1v1 drill, but in Tuesday's practice, you had the 1v1 where Golden, took advantage of the opportunity and beat Carrington Valentine, the cornerback. And then offense versus defense, Golden's out there working with the ones. And on a double move, he beats Nate Hobbs and then beats the safety Evan Williams for a 55-yard touchdown. But on Monday, you talk about hey, what was the play of the day of camp? On Monday, Matthew Golden bolted past Keyshawn Nixon for a sliding catch, and it was an incredible catch. And that was on Keyshawn Nixon. And so you've seen Nixon on Golden, we've seen Hobbs on Golden, we've seen Valentine on Golden. And again, I'm trying to tell myself, just chill out a little bit, relax. He's a rookie. I keep reminding myself there's a lot of mouths to feed and to keep happy on this offense, but Matthew Golden, when you talk about it factor, looking the part, I don't know if I should say cautious optimism, but just more pure excitement for me. This dude so far has looked the part. Super, super happy about what Matthew Golden has done at training camp. Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Training camp observation, splitting it up into two videos, offense and then defense. This one's offensive oriented, obviously. Tucker Kraft, tight end. I mentioned, to me, he is ascending towards superstardom. Tucker Kraft I'll say he took a step in the right direction from year 1 to year 2. Now going year 2 to year 3, I really, really could see Tucker Kraft taking a leap forward. Not a step, not a couple of steps, taking a gigantic leap forward. The coaches in the offseason talking about Matt LaFleur using a phrase talking about featuring Tucker Kraft in the passing game and having Adam Stenovich, I think it was back in May, the offensive coordinator for the Packers, saying that there were staff meetings, a couple of them, talking this offseason about, hey, how can we get Tucker Kraft more involved? How can we get the ball in his hands even more than what we've done? So I have high expectations for Tucker Kraft. He's had a couple of fumbles in camp, and one of them was it seemed like the play was over, and we're going to have a video talking about the defense, and the defense just keeps punching at the ball, and it came out a little bit late. But there was kind of a bizarre situation that took place where Matt LaFleur was asked at his presser about some of the fumbles that the Packers have had, and he specifically mentioned Tucker Kraft and the 2 fumbles that Tucker Kraft had. But he sort of cushioned it by talking about how great Tucker Kraft is and things of that nature, but just said, yeah, it needs to get better. Kraft fumbling twice. And Tucker Kraft, after practice on Tuesday, he was being sarcastic and joking around and kind of passive-aggressive, but he was saying, yeah, LaFleur just threw me under the bus, mentioning me specifically, and he was talking about protect the ball. It was kind of weird. I do think it's a nothing burger. I'm not putting too much stock into it. Tucker Kraft, by all accounts, has been an incredible teammate, great locker room guy, things of that nature. All I hear when Tucker Kraft talks is, we want to win the division. We want to beat our division rivals. We want to win a Super Bowl. A couple weeks ago, he said Jordan Love is the quarterback that can lead this franchise to winning a Super Bowl. He says all the right things. I think this might have just been a brief little lapse in judgment where maybe he was frustrated. I'm sure he's not thrilled with fumbling the ball twice in 2 days in training camp. And so he, I don't want to say lashed out. That's too strong. But he just, spoke a little more freely than maybe what he usually does, and said LaFleur threw him under the bus. He said bus, fine, and someone's like, what does that mean? And he's like, oh, getting thrown under the bus by your coach. I don't have worries about Tucker Kraft, having fumble issues this year. It's just, it wasn't something that popped up in college at South Dakota State. It hasn't been an issue his first 2 years in Green Bay. I think he had one fumble last year. I'm not worried about that with Tucker Kraft. Again, the defense has been uber aggressive, which is great to see. And it seems like plays are over sometimes when the team isn't in pads, or even when they're in pads, and the defense just keeps hammering away, which you love to see from Hafley's group. So none of this changes my superstardom on the horizon for Tucker Kraft sort of prediction. We've gotten this far too, and we haven't talked about the quarterback, Jordan Love. He's looked fine. Again, it's training camp. I'm not going to put a ton of stock into how training camp looks for Jordan Love specifically. Like for Matthew Golden, you just see him dazzling, and you see the brilliance and the excellence and the spectacular catches and the ability to reroute mid-play and to adjust on the fly. And that's harder for me to be like, man, just tell yourself it's training camp and don't put stock into it. For Jordan Love, it's like Jordan Love could be horrific or incredible throughout training camp, and I'm not going to pay too much attention to it. I'm waiting for the regular season for someone like Jordan Love. With Golden, it's like, this is his first time in pads with the Packers as a rookie. You want to see it. Same thing for Savion Williams, had the concussion issue that he's working himself back from. So for guys like that, those are the guys I'm kind of like really gluing my eyeballs towards. And then guys who I think, it's a big year for him. And defensively, you're talking about a guy like Lucas Van Ness, and we'll get to that in the next video. But Jordan Love, it's just like, he sounds the part. It's weird. Like when I'm watching him at training camp 2 days this week, it's like nothing is catching me off guard. Nothing's surprising me. It's Jordan Love, right? It's good. But when I'm listening to him talk to reporters at his locker, it's like, man, he sounds more confident. He sounds like a leader, where maybe that a little bit of that's been missing, or a little bit of it's been more hesitant his first 2 years as a starter. Like it might sound kind of odd for me to phrase it this way. He sounds the part this offseason. Like, to me, Jordan Love sounds the part. Now you just want him to play the part and to elevate this year as a quarterback. Because, again, as much as the Packers might push back on it, I thought the passing game was pretty rocky in the second half of the season, and a lot of that might have been injuries with Jordan Love. He had 3 separate ones throughout the year, and that's no fun to deal with. And it started all the way back in week 1 with an MCL sprain against the Philadelphia Eagles on like the second to last play of the game. And then he had the groin injury in Jacksonville, week 18, the elbow issue against Chicago, where he left the game and Malik Willis came in. But Jordan Love, to me, like, there is nothing honestly, there is nothing for me, and I might be in the minority here, but there is nothing for me that Jordan Love can or can't do in training camp that is going to sway my opinion on how I think about him right now. And that is, so far through 2 years as a starter, 2 playoff appearances, incredible in his first year, first playoff game in Dallas, and really things started to click in the second half of his first year. Last year was a little more rocky. I'd like to hope a lot of it was, comfortability or a lack of comfortability because of the injuries. So, yeah, I personally am not putting any stock into what Jordan Love does in training camp. He sounds the part, though. He sounds the part. Now you want him to play the part on the field. And like I said, there's been some throws. He's had a couple of interceptions. They're throws that I can't imagine and he does have a little bit of a gunslinger mentality in him, but they're throws that I can't imagine he's going to even, try on an even somewhat consistent basis in the regular season. I would like to ask that question to Matt LaFleur or Stenavich or even Hafley on the defensive side of things. Like, do they play, reckless might not be the correct word to use, but do they play like that, a little more reckless in training camp with some of their decisions and some of their throws, just because it's training camp and they want to sort of see how far they can stretch the boundaries on certain things? Because that's kind of what it feels like to me at times when I'm watching Jordan Love. Like, I saw Aaron Rodgers threw an interception on his first pass of training camp with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Patrick Queen picked it off, and Rodgers, I think he was looking left, and he was just trying to, throw into a small little box and try to fit through a small window, and it didn't work out. And when I watched that, it's like Aaron Rodgers isn't making that read and that throw in the regular season. So I feel like quarterbacks just play a little more loosey-goosey in training camp with some of their decision-making and some of their throws. Now, obviously, you want that hammered out by the time the regular season comes around, but they know that. Jordan Love knows it. Rodgers knew it throughout his time at Green Bay. So I'm not worried about it with Jordan Love. Last thing I want to look at, offensive line. A lot of looks with the ones for Rasheed Walker and Sean Rhyan. Elgton Jenkins is now back in the fold at center after dealing with a little bit of a back injury. I think some people thought it might be a contractual issue for Elgton Jenkins, but it was not. He's back in the mix. I saw Stenavich mention, again, I'm recording these 2 videos on Wednesday. I saw Stenavich say that they like what they've seen from Jordan Morgan so far, and now we might see Jordan Morgan start to maybe get some more looks. I'm paraphrasing, but with the ones, because primarily so far at left tackle, it's been Rasheed Walker and then Sean Rhyan at right guard. Everything else kind of status quo. Aaron Banks had that back flare up, but that's going to be your left guard. Elgton Jenkins is going to be your center. And the newly inked to a pretty damn good extension, Zach Tom, is your starting right tackle. So those 3 things are in place. But so far with the ones, it's been a lot of Rasheed Walker at left tackle, and Sean Rhyan's even played a little center when Elgton Jenkins was out, and they had Jacob Monk at right guard, and then they flipped and had Jacob Monk go to center and Sean Rhyan go to right guard. And Jacob Monk as sort of a secondary or a tertiary piece to this. I like seeing him get some reps with the ones. Middle of the draft pick last year, has versatility on the offensive line, guard, center, at Duke. See what he can kind of give you, right? And then I think you're in a kind of a prove-it spot for a guy like Glover and Telfort after, again, to them unfairly being put in that playoff game against Philadelphia last year in the middle of it, but Green Bay didn't have a choice once Elgton Jenkins went down, but it was so bad for them, you'd like to see them kind of flip a page and really shine in training camp in the preseason with their opportunities. That's what I got for the offense, though. Feel for Marshawn Lloyd, Matthew Golden. Oh, my gosh, he looks so good. You're just trying to tell yourself, like, it's training camp, it's training camp. Tucker Kraft, he'll be fine. Not worried about a couple of hiccups with hanging on to the rock. Jordan Love, nothing he can or can't do in training camp that's going to sway my opinion. I'm firmly just waiting on the regular season for him. And if he comes out and he lights it up against Detroit and Washington and Cleveland and Dallas, I think those are the first 4 games in order. If he comes out and does that the first 4 weeks going into the bye and he looks spectacular and he looks like the guy we saw in the second half of his first year as a starter and in that playoff game against Dallas, I will start to think, okay, 4 games in this year, Jordan Love looks really damn good. Must have been the injuries last year kind of holding things down. And it doesn't hurt to add a guy like Matthew Golden and another in Savion Williams to the picture, and hopefully Marshawn Lloyd. And with the offensive line, Stenavich had mentioned too, like Green Bay, he mentioned like rotating linemen during games and how Green Bay will be open to doing that this year. I would imagine that the 2 candidates for that would be Jordan Morgan for sure, and maybe Anthony Belton, the rookie out of North Carolina State. When you talk about rotating linemen, and they did it last year at right guard with Sean Rhyan and Jordan Morgan before Jordan Morgan had a couple of injuries, sort of rain on his parade for his rookie campaign. But if Green Bay is going to go with that method again this year where it's like, hey, we could rotate some offensive linemen during games, I would guess, and it's an educated guess, that it would be Jordan Morgan for sure, whether that's at left tackle with Walker, although I don't know if you want to be rotating at left tackle during a game a lot, or right guard with Sean Rhyan, and then maybe Anthony Belton, your second-round pick out of North Carolina State. So we'll see, but a lot of depth on that offensive line. A lot of depth. I thought it was a good group for Green Bay last year, and they go out. They lost Josh Myers, but you move Elgton Jenkins to center, you feel like you might have gotten better. You feel like you got better at center. And then you go out and you get Aaron Banks at left guard, draft Anthony Belton in the second round. That might be a stash pick for 2026, but maybe he's part of that rotation if he really shines in training camp and throughout the preseason. Those are some early thoughts on the offense. Let me know what you guys and gals think. Please click the subscribe button near in 200. It is Mitch Ham on YouTube. We'll have another video coming up talking about defense and the observations on that side of the ball through this first portion of training camp. It is Mitch Ham on YouTube. Always appreciative of all the support. We'll see you next time.